Hello and welcome to Voices of the Vic podcast with me, Ben Aiton. A little bit different this week. We are here to chat about Watford's 3-0 defeat at home to Leeds United. But this time it's not me and James or me and Mike. We're actually here with three other people. You may recognise Tom from the Golden Pages. Tom is back for, I think, his fourth appearance now. He got his hat-trick ball last time. So Tom from Golden Pages, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, not too bad considering.
Considering you're in the supporters committee and maybe getting a bit of hate at the moment.
Waiting for that, yeah. I'm ready.
Ready and braced, right? We'll chat about it a bit later on. Also, a good friend of mine, Jacob Deacon, he's here tonight. Jacob, how are you doing, mate?
Really well. Yeah, I've been begging you for a little while to let me come on, so thanks for giving us a shot. But yeah, really well. Same as Tom, all things considering after yesterday.
Good stuff. Well, I know how long you go on and chat, mate. So we like to keep it under 45 minutes, and I've always thought if we get Jacob on, I don't think we're going to hit that 45 minutes. But yeah, no, it's great to have you on, mate. And lastly but not least, Frankie Holliday is here as well. Frankie, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. All things considered, not too bad.
Good stuff. So Frankie is a season ticket holder of Watford. He's been coming for about 20 seasons now. He lives in Dorset as well, so he's got the long old journey to commute up to watch Watford play at home. He does a lot of away games as well. So Frankie does a lot of Watford games. Jacob's a season ticket holder as well. And obviously Tom is the editor of Watford fanzine. So we're here to chat about the Leeds United game and about that supporters committee, which is a hot topic at the moment. And I think everyone wants to get a lot of things off their chests at the moment. So we'll jump straight into the team news for the Leeds United game. It was an unchanged team, but had suffered a 2-0 defeat at Anfield. So it was Ben Foster in goal, Kiko Feminina, Christian Cavaselli, Samir and Kamara make up the back four. Midfield three was Sissoko, Imran Louza and Kushka. And up front was Ismaila Sarr, João Pedro and Cucho Hernandez. Tom, looking at that lineup, was that what you was kind of expecting going into the Leeds game after the 2-0 defeat at Leeds, Liverpool? Because we did play all right at Liverpool, didn't we?
Yeah, I thought it was a positive performance in as much as a 2-0 defeat can be. Obviously, you know, we're looking at one of the best sides in Europe, if not the world, at the moment. So, we just needed a positive performance, you know, to kind of carry that on to the Leeds game. And I think, you know, you could have changed one or two names in there, but by and large, I think, you know, we're at the stage now where the squads, you know, the squad, the 15 is relatively fixed right now. We just need them to play cohesively as a team, and for, you know, the odd spark of, you know, genius or magic from one of the immensely talented forward players. And I didn't have any problems with the starting lineup, but I'm sure we'll chat about how it all transpired, and wasn't particularly happy about that, I can tell you, but I'll let the other lads have a word about that.
Yeah, not at all. Jacob, was there anything you wanted to change from that starting lineup? Obviously, Joshua King picked up a hat-trick away on international duties a few weeks ago, and he's been sitting on the bench ever since. Do you think it might have been worth actually playing a Josh King who's actually full of confidence at the moment?
I think he doesn't seem to fancy Josh King, does he? And I can understand that. The last few times that I've seen him play, he's not offered. I don't think he's offered a huge amount. I don't think his hold-up play is fantastic. He sort of drifts through games. I think the potential is definitely there with him. I remember when we signed him, I thought he was pretty decent at Bournemouth, and I was quite happy with the signing. But clearly, so far, you know, I appreciate he scored a hat-trick against Everton, has popped up in a couple of games and performed really well. But on the whole, he's probably not delivered the amount of goals that certainly I was expecting from him. You know, I'd hope for a bit more. So I can understand the decision not to play him. Obviously, he played all right at Liverpool as well as you can, given the fact that we still lost the game. But that was a game going into, I think a lot of us thought this could be really bad. So to come out of that, lost 2-0, you might say we're a little bit unlucky to only lose that to lose that 2-0. On another day, you know, we had chances. Kuch's 1-1, for example. We might have got something from that game on another day. So I can understand him sticking with the same team. I probably wouldn't have put Josh King in, to be honest. I would have probably stuck with the same team. But unfortunately, it's just individual errors that have cost us again. We've said this so many times this season.
I think you can count on. It's double figures now, definitely, isn't it? With individual errors that we've had this season, the amount of times it's cost Watford this season, and for example, 2 yesterday, wasn't it? Frankie, another guy who's not getting into the Watford team at the moment is Emmanuel Dennis. We've relied heavily on him for goals this season, and I don't know if Roy's fancying him at the moment either, is he?
Yeah, with Dennis, you instantly lose someone tracking back as well, because he's the first to go on the attack, and he's one of the last ones back, and he's always chasing the ball. But I wouldn't have started him personally. I mean, his performance yesterday, you could see it was almost like they were playing for themselves. Dennis didn't pass to João Pedro, and then Pedro didn't pass to Dennis. It's like a team full of individuals. So I guess the team picked itself now. It's one of those, we're in the pub, we check our phones, team news out, see unchanged, shrug of the shoulders, put the phone down, carry on watching the Everton game.
Yeah, we Watford fans dread that 2 o'clock notification that we get through on our Watford mobile phones, ain't it, saying the team news. There's nothing to get excited about this at the moment. Like you're saying, Frankie, it's a team of individuals. We've not been a team for a very long time. The last proper team that we had is the FA Cup final season, wasn't it, under Javi Gracia, when everyone was playing for each other. We've not had that since, and it's just been diabolical. And yeah, again, like yesterday, that was Watford's 9th successive home defeat. I think the record is possibly 12. So Watford are well on track for that. But we are on track for the nutmegs record. We're only 4 away from PSG's record. Watford actually registered 10 nutmegs yesterday. I don't know how many. 10? Yeah, 10 the nutmegs.
Jeez.
The average
this season
has been 1, but Watford did register 10 yesterday, which is insane. Oh well, at least we might win something at the end of the season. But Tom, where did it all go wrong yesterday?
Do you know what? I thought we were okay up until probably just before the second goal went in. That the first one was a bit of magic from Rafinha. You could probably criticise. I think it was Samir that was, a couple of steps off of him. Premier League level, you probably need to be a bit tighter than that. But it was a lovely finish. And I thought we were, we were fairly solid. We didn't really offer anything going forwards in terms of. There were missing passes in the final third. There was just a lack of cohesiveness in the final third. But the goal, I thought we were still in it up until the second, and then I think most of the crowd kind of gave up and walked out at that stage. But I think the problem yesterday was that we weren't clinical. Like in the final third, I think we had 8 shots and 1 on target. That's obviously the headline, but passing in around the final third, it was just dreadful. I mean, the number of times that Kutska gave the ball away. Leeds were very solid, I thought, defensively, and you've got to have something a bit special to break that down. Obviously, Sarr had a big chance, João Pedro half chance maybe, but it just wasn't happening. There wasn't any spark in the final third, and they had a couple of goals that they scored from errors, and as I said, that first was pretty magical from Rafinha. But I think ultimately it's just again it's just the same old story. It's just lack of quality, and mistakes are costing us big time, and it's been the same from start to the bitter end. I expect at Chelsea at the end of the season.
Yeah, I'm dreading that one, but at least fans are allowed to go now. Not that many Watford fans will want to go to Chelsea now. We're allowed to go, but it'd be interesting to see come the end of the season. I still actually think that Watford are actually going to think bottom of the table. I said it a few weeks ago, and Norwich picked up 3 points today as well. So I'm not going to be surprised if we do finish foot of this Premier League table. Jacob, Tom said about individual errors just now. That first goal was avoidable, wasn't it, from Samir? It looked like Samir wanted to try and retain possession a little bit, wasn't it? But it was a bit careless from him. And then you can't give the ball to Rafinha. And we've seen his quality all season. It was only going to go in the back of the net, wasn't it?
There's so many, we're playing in this league. You're playing against so many top players. You give them opportunities, you're going to get buried for it. And in the Championship, that probably doesn't happen. You might get away with 2 or 3 of those before you actually get punished. You're not going to in this division. We know Rafinha's a great player, but whoever we play in this league, they're going to have danger players that can do that sort of thing. The problem we've got, confidence is clearly shot to bits at the moment. At home, we've been poor, obviously, for a while. You look at some of the recent home games, yesterday, the Brighton game a few weeks ago, the Palace game, the Arsenal game, we go 1-0 down, and suddenly it's like a mountain to climb. Mentally, I think the players looking at it, and obviously confidence is really low anyway, and straight away you're up against it. And I think the players are almost defeated at that point. I agree with what Tom said. I think first half in particular, we didn't offer a lot. I didn't think there was much in the game, to be fair. I think, we've been a bit sloppy, giving them the goal. There wasn't much that happened. I didn't think we offered a huge amount. But actually, second half, albeit there weren't a huge number of chances, but there felt like we had moments in the game. There felt like there was a bit of momentum building, which eventually led to that Sarr chance. And if ever there was a player yesterday playing who just seemed like the confidence had completely drained out of him, it was Sarr. There's a few times yesterday he got the ball on the right-hand side, one defender to beat, space behind the defender. And since he signed for the club, so many times he would have knocked the ball past and run, tried to commit the defender, do something. And at no stage yesterday was he prepared to do that. And even with that chance, the ball's broke across to him. Yes, he has probably got to take it first time, but you're just looking for a bit of composure from him. Just slide it past the keeper. He's just thrashed at it. And I was watching him afterwards. You look at his body language. He just looked completely, like his confidence had gone. And it was almost similar to actually that game. And not a lot of people picked up on it because we happened to win on that occasion. But when we beat United earlier in the season, and of course he missed the two penalties, the original and the retake, and you could just sense it then. It was a similar sort of feeling. He didn't look confident. You could almost predict he was going to miss. And especially after he missed the first one, you then knew he'd missed the second. And it was the same sort of thing. And obviously that day, it was a bit different because we went on to win the game, so it wasn't really mentioned. But yesterday, a few people around me and online were suggesting that he's maybe angling for the move at the end of the season and his head's not in it. And to be fair, I don't think that's the case. He had a perfect opportunity to leave when we went down last time. And I think a lot of players would have taken that opportunity. And to his credit, he didn't do that. He stuck around. He delivered for us in the Championship last year. He showed his quality. So I've got nothing but respect for him. But at the moment, and yesterday in particular, he was not at the level, certainly that we know he can produce. He just didn't look at it. But you go 1-0 down, you're up against it. An awful mistake for the second goal, and then it is game over because we're not coming back. Especially the form we're in at the moment, it's a tough ask to come back from 1-0 down, 2-0 down, no chance. The game's gone. And unfortunately, there's been so many occasions this year that cost the year, particularly at home, where errors have lost us the football match. If even we had made half the amount of mistakes that we made, we might have had half a chance. We might have picked up a few more points, but you can't make the sort of mistakes that we seem to make on a regular basis and expect to pick up points and wins. It's just not going to happen.
Definitely. And you talking about Ismaila Sarr and rumours. He actually put something out on Instagram earlier wanting to clear some things up. So Ismaila Sarr came out and said, recent statements about my future do not commit me, and I am not committed to any agent. I am under contract with Watford and remain totally focused and involved in the club's objective in remaining in the Premier League. So obviously he's felt a lot of heat. I think fans were starting to get on his back yesterday. It's not the first time fans have actually turned on his back, but we've got to remember he is a young lad. He's incredibly young, but he's very talented. And the pressure we put on him and expect him, because of the price tag as well, when he's came over, we expect him to hit the floor running. He performed very well in that first season in the Premier League. He stayed with us, like you say, Jacob. He could have got that move, rumours to go to Liverpool, but he stuck around and he helped Watford get promotion. He was scoring goals before he got injured. I think he's on 5 goals this season, and he was up there for assists as well. And it's unfortunate that the injury happened because it did kind of affect him. But he came back, African Cup of Nations. He's performed well there. He won the tournament there. He scored a penalty in the shootout to knock out Egypt in the FA Cup World Cup qualifiers the other day as well. So he's a very talented boy, but we just need to try and not get on his back. I know it's difficult when heat of a moment and things are going against you, but you just moan at someone who's not done well at this point. But we need to try and lay off the back of Ismaila Sarr. Frankie, how do you feel about Ismaila Sarr at the moment? Because there's a lot of talk about him moving at the end of the season, but if he does, he's going to get the blessing of Watford fans, because he has given his all, hasn't he? It's just yesterday was an off day.
Yeah, I mean, to me, he'll go, and I'll be happy for him wherever he goes. I hope he succeeds. Right now, I feel like he's obviously playing not to get injured. I feel, as Jacob alluded to, he didn't knock the ball down and run with it. He cuts back. Normally, he would run with it, and he doesn't really stick a head in anymore. He used to do that quite a lot, but yeah, I think when he goes, it's not a matter of if, it's when. He should have all of our blessings, because he could have gone January, but he could have gone last season, and he didn't. And I think that season, the Championship, has helped him massively. He's cut a long story short. I feel like he's playing not to get injured, so he can make that move in the summer, which I feel like he definitely should. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a point where he was on the right-hand side and he was getting near the box, and he could have knocked it past Liam Cooper, couldn't he, with ease? And he kind of dwelled on it a little bit, and then Cooper came through him and crunched him a little bit, and then he was holding his ankle on the floor. So you can kind of see that he's possibly not trying to get injured to get that move away. I'm going to stay with you, Frankie, as well. We're talking about Watford's form at home this season. Obviously, Watford had such a good home form last season in the Championship. Really good defensive record. We set the record in the Championship last season for clean sheets or goals conceded. What's gone wrong in the Premier League this season at home? What is it? Because we've seen the away form isn't too bad, especially under Hodgson. It has improved, but at home, 9 defeats in a row. What's going on?
Well, start off last season, the teams in the Championship weren't as good as they are this season, I don't think. And our team, eclipsed all of them. Like, we should have walked that league. We should have won it with the team we had. But this season, it's hard to get behind the team when, a couple defeats, the manager's, possibly going to go. And as Jacob said earlier as well, when you're 1-0 down with Watford, you don't think you're going to get it. You're not going to get a goal, put it that way. So I have this rule. Not sure if, you boys do it, but 3-0 down, I'm off. And it's now got to a point where it's, almost 2-0 down and I'm going, because, it's a long drive back. And we're just not going to get into it. We're not going to score that goal. Hodgson plays to not concede, and when we do concede, what do? We can't do anything, unfortunately, and it's such a shame, but it's just the way it goes.
It is a shame. And Tom, do you think it is a case of being a team of individuals really this season, especially like we've seen, like when Dennis came on, it looked like him and João Pedro weren't passing with each other. There was a stage where João Pedro was in a really good position in the centre of the pitch, and I think Emmanuel Dennis had so much room on the left-hand side, but he was just refusing to pass it to him, because I think earlier on Dennis did pass it to João Pedro. Is it a case of is it just a case of individuals now and no team, or is it a case of what players not really caring because they think half of them aren't going to be here at the end of the season? We've seen Emmanuel Dennis linked with the move to Villarreal. We know Sarr's possibly going to be off. There's probably going to be a few more who's looking to leave at the end of the season. Do you think it's players not really caring?
I'd say I don't really buy this debate about players not caring. I don't really like it, because they're all professional footballers. How they do now, even if they aren't at Watford and they get relegated, it will impact them next season. So they do this day in, day out. It's their job. It's their life. None of them don't care. It's just I think there's a whole concoction of things that's going wrong. Particularly at Watford, as you mentioned, there's a lot of individuals. There's talented players that have been brought in at various stages from various corners of the world, and it doesn't seem as though there's any kind of cohesion. It doesn't seem as though there's a kind of team bond, particularly as for Watford teams that we've seen in the past. The successful sides that we've seen in the Premier League. For Watford, there's been you can sense the sort of the team spirit, if you like, and the bond that they've got. They do look like individuals, and at times it looks as though they've not trained together. It's pretty startling. I noticed particularly in yesterday's game, the Leeds team, they knew what they were doing. There was lots of short, sharp passing. Certain players knew which runs to make, where to find other players, and it was a bit reactive for Watford rather than proactive. And I think that's been a lot of the case for stories of the story of the season, and we've relied upon magic from the likes of Sarr, Dennis, and lo and behold, when their individual showmanship, quality, goals, assists, spark disappears, then the team has nothing. And you mix that with the defensive frailties that we've had for quite a large proportion of the season, if not now, and it's a recipe for disaster. Then you can't be a team of individuals at Watford's level in this league and expect to be successful. So something that I've always said is that there needs to be a good, strong spine of the team, a keeper, central defender, centre midfielder, and a striker that the first names on the team sheet that are leaders, play week in, week out, and you can rely on them. And we haven't really got that. We haven't had that for a while, really.
Yeah, Jacob, looking at the starting lineup or a squad, could you maybe try and see if there was a spine of the side?
I think there's players with potential that could be a good spine on the side. But I think what you've got to look at is how many of those players are going to be prepared to stay if we go down. I mean, Tom, I agree with your point to a certain degree that the players do care. I don't buy into the notion that the players don't care. But I think the important question to ask is why they care. Most of them care for their own selfish reasons. They care because they want to be, on big money, playing for big teams in the best leagues. They don't care. Do you think how many of these players actually care that the fans are hurting right now, that we're all annoyed? I don't think many of them care. I really don't. I think a lot of them players go home at night and they think, oh, we lost today. That's a bit annoying because it means chances are I'm going to have to think about moving again and I've got to do this. Not many of them, I think, will go home and think, we've really let the fans down today. We need to pay them back. They just don't. And to be fair, that perhaps that's just a reflection on modern day football now, rather than our particular situation. But I don't think it helps in our particular situation. I think the main issue we've got is, aside from potentially a lack of spirit, is a huge lack of quality. I think particularly in midfield, I actually think midfield's our big problem personally. I think defence was a problem. I think the signings of Samir and Kamara, obviously Samir's had a stink yesterday, but on the whole, him and Kamara are an improvement on our defence. I don't think our defence is terrible. It's not great, but it's not terrible. But you look at those midfield options. I mean, you mentioned earlier when speaking to Tom about a defensive record last season in the Championship, and yes, we were obviously playing weaker teams. But if you actually look at the midfield we had, we probably had a better midfield in the Championship last year than we do now. We've offloaded Will Hughes for £5 million because he had a year left on his deal. Is it worth it for £5 million? For £5 million, we've let Will Hughes go. We'd be better off keeping him for a year and just let him go on a free if he wanted to go. You look at the midfield now. On a personal level, I like Kucha. Kucha's a good, he tries hard and he works hard, but he's a 34-year-old that's never played in this division. 35 now. What will we realistically expect him from that? Sissoko, again, I like on a personal level, he tries, but there's an obvious lack of quality there. I think he must have been a good player at some point because he's made 70-odd appearances for France. I can't see how that's happened looking at the player now. But at a certain point, he must have been a good player. Aside from Loser, who I do rate Loser, I think Loser's a good player and hopefully he'll stay when we go down. And we sort of need to build around him. He's definitely part of that spine that could kick us on. But aside from him, the midfield is absolutely appalling. It's no wonder that the defence are under so much pressure all the time. And it's no wonder that, we struggle going forward because there's no connection at all that I see with the midfield. Your defenders play the ball into midfielders and no one's really prepared to turn and run or create something. Typically what will happen is the defence will pass it into someone like Kucha or Kiembe if he's playing and be passed back to the defence. And eventually we'll decide to go route one and it doesn't lead to anything. It's an embarrassing lack of quality, and that's why we're going down, because the quality is terrible. Someone's asked in the comments a little while ago, what players do you think are deadwood in the squad? It'd be quicker to say who's not deadwood, if we're being honest. The lack of quality in the team. And unfortunately, a lot of people talk about it online quite regularly. 3 years ago, we got to a cup final and our best ever league finish, our best ever Premier League finish. You look, we had an opportunity at that stage to kick on, to sign a couple of other players and establish ourselves as potentially a top 10 Premier League club. We've declined so rapidly since then that team that we had 3 years ago, that's light years away now. That's light years away from where we are now. It's mild. That team is miles better than what we've got now. And trying to get back to that stage it's definitely not impossible. And I'm sure we will get there eventually, but we've set ourselves back a long, long time, unfortunately.
Yeah, Frankie, do you agree with what Jacob's saying there?
Yeah, absolutely. The midfield is, I'd say the weakest point in the squad now. I mean, yesterday the only player that wanted to bring the ball forward was Kuka, who was man of the match for me. God knows why he got substituted, but yeah, he was the only one
who was having a really good game for once, wasn't he? He struggled with previous performances, but yesterday he looked like one of the, well, like you say, man of the match for Watford.
Yep, absolutely. And he stayed man of the match because after that, it all went even more wrong.
Yeah, definitely. And talking about this comment from Varane as well, who do you think classes Deadwood in the team? Frankie, looking at that side, is there anyone standing out for you who's Deadwood in the side?
Oh, God. Well, obviously Ben in goal. Love him to bits, but yeah, his time has come. Kabasele, another one, probably should go. Firmina, he's not as good as he was last year and the seasons before. He's getting on a bit. But in all honesty, I would probably reshuffle the whole squad. Try and find a different way to do it. Youngsters. I mean, we got players out on loan now who are doing really well. Really well.
I think just jumping in there as well. Sorry to interrupt, but you make a good point, Frankie. It's not only the players that need to be moved on and are clearly Deadwood in the squad and their time is probably over at the club, but it's also what players are prepared to stick around next season. Yeah. Dennis isn't good.
No chance.
You look at Dennis. He's pretty down tools at Bruges when he wanted to move. He's had disciplinary problems at Nigeria, which is why initially he wasn't in the squad for the African Cup of Nations, and they changed manager, which is why he was then potentially back in the frame. I would imagine Dennis is one of the players that I look at on our side that I think, I'm not sure you are giving it all, if I'm honest. And there's probably several other players that aren't going to stick around. So it's not only the Deadwood we need to get rid of, it's then the players that are actually prepared to stay and work at it and go for it. But
yeah, exactly. I mean, there's only a few that hand on heart say I'd want next season. As you said, Loser, Cucho I'd have, Pedro, Kamara. That's, I'd be happy if we took them with us next season and then, got rid of the lot and started from there. But obviously we all know that's not going to happen. We'll probably still start with Clavey next season and Foster in goal, Cathcart at the back. So who knows? Who knows?
They're getting ready for the Masters football. That's coming back, isn't it? Maybe we might win that.
Right into
it. Definitely. Tom, is it a case of just accepting relegation now and trying to prepare for next season in the Championship? Because like both the boys are saying, it could be a big overhaul of the squad this season that's needed.
Yeah, I mean, the club would have been preparing for this from, months and months ago. I think as fans, it's kind of become a little bit easier to accept it as time's gone on, really. I mean, I said sort of after the Norwich game, I thought that was quite a pivotal point in the season, and I couldn't really see a way back from then. But yeah, I think it's extremely unlikely now that we stay up. From a fan's perspective, at least, I guess we can have a relegation party for the remaining games. That's the only way we're gonna get through it, I think. But in terms of the Championship, I mean, it's a different league. You need different qualities there than you do the Premier League. So I don't think you can necessarily convert the squad or some of the players that we have. You need some know-how. You need some some Championship knowledge, and some players that have quality, more physical qualities perhaps, in that league. And I think some of the players that we've got will struggle in that league. Some will do all right. I personally think Sissoko would do fine in the centre midfield for us in the Championship. Whether he stays or not, I don't know. But I think as the lads were saying there, we need to look at youth. We need to look at the incredible players that we've got on our books that have gone far and wide on loan this year, and give a couple of them a chance. Throw them in. It's a long old season, the Championship, and we can really unearth some gems there. And what a better way to bring together the fan base and a youngster that's come through the academy and does well in the first team. I know there's a couple there that look sharp, and a few of the youngsters that we brought in from other clubs, Tom Delibashiru, being one of those. It's an opportunity, but at the same time, we want to bounce back up. There's a real danger if we don't go straight back up and the parachute payments dry up, that we could be in there for a long old time. And if the finances, if the sort of financial picture isn't great, we could be in real trouble. So it's a bit of a, be careful what you wish for, I think, with the Championship. But from a fan perspective, we're probably going to have a more enjoyable time next year. We've got some nice away trips and everything, and we're not going to be getting battered every week. Well, hopefully not anyway.
Let's hope not. Anyway, but like you say, at least it would be something to look forward to next season. Like when we was in the Championship last season, unfortunately, all of us couldn't attend because of COVID and all the restrictions, and fans couldn't attend. And like you say, so many good away days in the Championship, so many good old-fashioned grounds that you get to go to, not like in the Premier League where most of them are bowls now and they don't have really good atmospheres. And you've got these old traditional grounds with good old boozers just around the corner, and it's a good old day, and it's a good old lads' day out. Like going to Vicarage Road now, like no one's excited going to watch Watford now. I feel sorry for Frankie, like travelling up from Dorset to like putting in his sat nav going, oh, I'm going to Watford, and then he's got a 2-hour journey up, and it's like, I really don't want to be doing this, but he's doing it because he loves his football club, and this is why we're all here. We all love Watford and we want the best for Watford, but it's just not happening. And there's loads of decisions that's going on off the pitch and on the pitch, which has affected our season. And seeing the disconnect between the fans at the moment is a massive one for me. And we're going to move on to the big topic now, which is the supporters group, which Tom's going to be delighted we've moved on to this subject. Friday night, I was speaking to Frankie earlier. I can't believe Watford Football Club and Scott Duxbury decided to release this news on the eve of the game, knowing that it could potentially unsettle fans. And obviously that probably didn't help the atmosphere going into the game. And obviously there's been situations where the people in these supporters, in the supporters committees, have been confronted about it, and they've had a lot of abuse. And it's disgusting seeing some of the abuse. I've seen abuse held at Sam from WD18 and Cole from Do Not Scratch Your Eyes podcast, and it's totally unacceptable. And these people haven't asked to be in this committee. If I'm right from understanding, Tom, people who attended this meeting just got asked to attend Vicarage Road for a meeting. You weren't aware that there was going to be some sort of committee at this point.
Well, I got a phone call before the meeting to invite me there. The pretense of it was, it was a supporters consultation, so a bit different to traditional fans forum or just a kind of exchange of views. I think the idea was to create a formal structure to provide a constructive dialogue both ways for the benefit of the club and and the supporters as well. I think I do think it was a positive, and I still do think it's a positive move to improve fan engagement. It's been a big criticism of the club in recent times. It's more of a kind of, it was supposed to be more of a consultation. The minutes of which would be shared. And this is the kind of issue that I have with it a little bit. It was a full, frank conversation. It was a brilliant evening, and we asked the questions that every other fan was dying to do. And I get the phone call, and of course that's what I want to do. I want to discuss the questions, the burning questions that I have amongst the other Watford fans in the room. So yeah, it was a full and frank discussion. The frustration is that the minutes weren't released at the time that the announcement was made. We got a booklet from the club when we entered, and the basis of it was that we'd agree on minutes, or on minutes, the meeting outcome that would be broadcast or published to the wider Watford fandom. Some elements of it are sensitive, and some of the frank discussions, rightfully will stay kind of in house. But yeah, the guidelines of it and the broad basis of it would be released, and we're quite a long time now since that happened, and I completely understand people's frustration, because it looks as though it's a secret society meeting, and you've been not invited, you haven't, and it's, yeah, I think it would have improved the situation, and I think a lot of fans would have understood if they knew the outcome, or the things that were discussed in the meeting. And the further it gets from the date of the meeting, the more apprehension and bad feelings going to be amongst the rest of the fan base.
Yeah, I get how, I understand how they've gone about it and who they approached first, and I do think it is a good idea. I just think the way they've managed it's been poor, and it has thrown you guys under the bus, and you've received a lot of criticism for it, and it's no fault of your own for going. Like you got a phone call, and of course whoever got a phone call from Watford Club saying, do you want to come in for a meeting and we're going to talk about things, of course everyone's going to go to that. No one's going to be like, nah, it's not for me, and put your phone down.
And the key thing there, Ben, as well, is that in the phone call I had, it was on the basis that I would be able to disseminate the meeting outcome, or the individuals amongst their supporter groups, YouTube channels, fansies, whatever it was. We knew it wouldn't be kind of a warts and all outcome. We wouldn't share the nuts and bolts that will stay in house. That was, it's great sort of background information, but the basis of it was that we would feed that back to our respective groups or whatever. And we were in a situation now where we're waiting for the minutes to come out, and it's sort of like limbo. But I've still got faith that the club will put it right. They'll release the minutes, and it will show that actually what we discussed was this and this, which is what 99 out of 100 Watford fans would have asked. These are the responses. This is why, this is the reasons we gave, blah blah blah, and it will put a lot of fans, minds to rest, and think, oh, actually that is a good idea. It's good that the club are being constructive in their discussions. But as I said, the main frustration for me, as well as a lot of the others that I've spoken to that were there, is that it's because the broader fan base doesn't know what was discussed. It's had the opposite outcome to what was intended, which is to bring the supporters in and be more cooperative, which is definitely something that the club haven't done in recent times. And we said that on the night. So I think it's got good intentions, but perhaps the execution could have been better, as you said.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but one thing I'll say from it before I move on to Jacob and Frankie, it's just if you're going to announce a supporters committee, people want to know what's been discussed in that meeting, so they should have released the minutes at the same time, and even given you guys notification saying, look, we're going to release this on Friday night, just to make you guys aware. Like, I bet it was a surprise for you and WD18 boys, Do Not Scratch Your Eyes, Proud Hornets, everyone else who invited, to find out Friday evening, oh, it's been released already. It must have been a massive surprise for you guys, and they just should have done it all together, and it wouldn't be messy like this, and fans wouldn't be as upset, because at least they would have had all the minutes, and they know that, okay, they've asked all the questions that we wanted, they've answered everything. Okay, happy days. And you turn up Saturday, there'll be no grumblings. Like I heard there was fighting in the Rookery on Saturday as well. So all of this could have been avoided. I know Frankie and Jacob wanted to chat about this as well, so I'll move over to Frankie quickly. Frankie, what's your thoughts on all of this?
Well, first things first, the reason I accepted your invitation to come on was so I'll be invited to the next meeting.
I'm not on the group, though.
No, but seriously though, the thing I don't like about it the most is that it was hand-picked people. I mean, The people chosen, I don't know all of them, but I just don't. I really feel like it should have been an open invitation.
But Frankie, who would you have invited? Who would? It's a you could say, well, the whole fan base should be invited, or everyone should know. Well, what other basis would you have chosen people?
Not basis on just a randomly selected fans. Nearby fans. Not these ones with social media influence. That's just my opinion. I don't want to blame the people that were chosen, because I feel like this is the club's fault. I say fault. It's not that big of a deal, but I just don't. I feel like it should have been randomly selected, not hand-picked. If you get what I mean.
I think the thing, if I just jump in, I think the reason why, I don't speak on behalf of the club. Just sort of preface this or have anything. Golden Pages is completely independent of the club, and I've got my views as the same as Carl and Sam and the others that were there. But what I think, my perspective is that the people that were invited there were people that have got groups. They've got various supporter outreaches in various different ways. That, as I said at the start, it was sort of the idea was to disseminate that amongst their sort of fan group. So I think if you would have had sort of picked random season ticket holders, I don't think it would have had the same effect. And the thing is, it wasn't a fans forum as well. It's a consultation. So there was lots of things that were discussed in the meeting. It wasn't just sort of, the end of it. There's follow-ups. I mean, I've been in contact with the club since, regarding other issues. There's other members that have had other issues as well. Things such as, seating, season tickets. It wasn't just a thing of, this is what we think the club's doing wrong. This is what the club isn't doing, is doing right. So it's a completely broad thing. I think it would have diluted it somewhat had it been just random people that, not random people, but certain selected people without the kind of reach that some of these channels or fanzines or whatever would have had. So I think that was the club's intention there. Although there's not going to be a catch-all thing of people that have got groups or other. They've obviously thought about it. Is it based on Twitter followers, YouTube hits? I don't know what it is, but I do understand why people feel a bit alienated from it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the thing with it now is that I don't know what anything that was said. Like you're saying, it's been told to your supporters group or anything like that. I'm in the Southern Counties Hornets group. I haven't seen anything. I've not seen anything said where you say stuff will be said, but as you said, that might come out at a later date. But yeah, that's the way I see it. I feel like it was handpicked. Whether right or wrong, is what it is. But it's just, how long ago when was the meeting? Was it last Thursday, Friday?
It was last week at some point.
Yeah. So I just haven't heard anything what was said, and I think that's what's bugging everyone else a bit, that we still don't know what was said.
Hopefully we all see there's a notification Monday morning and we can actually see this to put it all to bed a little bit. But Jacob, what's your whole take on this situation?
I think first things first, it's important to acknowledge, as you've rightly said, and Frankie's touched upon it as well, despite what's been thrown around online. I know there's been a bit of abuse and a bit of stick been thrown around online. This is not the fault of the people that have been invited. Tom, if I was asked to go, I would have gone. And any fan that says no is lying. They would have gone. Okay, so it's not the fault of the people that have gone. The problem with this is the lack of, and this is a problem not just with this fan committee, but with a number of different areas of the football club. The lack of leadership at our football club from the top is a joke. It's an absolute joke. Now, what they've got completely wrong on this side, there's two main issues with this for me. Okay, the first issue is the one that we're all talking about, which is the fact that so far it effectively is a secret meeting. I know they're saying, we're going to release the minutes, but they haven't so far. So it's effectively a secret meeting. Obviously, Tom, that's not your fault. It's not the fault of anyone else that's gone, but that's what's happened. Okay, so all of us are in the dark. So there's contradictions everywhere. Even in the club statement that they released on Friday night, they've said within that statement that they want to try and create something along the lines of, we want to try and create clear and direct access and transparency with supporters. And in that same statement, they've acknowledged that the conversations in the meeting will be confidential. So how do you plan to create direct means of communication with supporters whilst also keeping it confidential? It's a complete contradiction. But it's an absolute joke what they've done, because effectively what they've done is, instead of trying to create and bring everyone together, which is the purpose, they're very quick, as a lot of football clubs are nowadays, but they're very quick to talk about creating a culture at our football club and making us all a family at our football club, and we're all singing off the same hymn sheet. And yet what they've done is just alienated 99.9% of the population of our fan group. Because I believe this, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe 14 groups were included, were invited. So effectively what the club have said, whether you like it or not, this is the case. The club have said, well, look, you 14 groups, you're deserving of this information. You can be privy to this information. The rest of the fan base can't. That's the reality of it. But the second thing that I take issue with, and again, this is no disrespect to yourself, Tom, or to anyone else that was invited, but those 14 people that had the benefit of, or those 14 groups that had the benefit of being invited, have the responsibility to speak on behalf of all of us as a fan group, myself included. Why were we not given the opportunity to? I think what we should have done, and obviously Tom and Frankie have just touched upon this, who would have been involved, how the club would have gone about that. It should, the people that were involved, who represented all of us, myself included, should have been there by a vote. They should have been elected to be involved. That's what should have happened. I don't want people, and again, no disrespect, but I don't want people talking on my behalf and representing my views that, quite frankly, I don't even know. I don't know what you're talking about over there. Why were we not given an opportunity to say, the club should have come out and said, listen, this is what we're aiming to do. We understand we've let you down on occasions. We want to improve transparency. We want a clear line of communication with the fans. So don't rush it. Let's just say, look, starting as of the summer or the start of next season, whatever it might be, we want to try and create a fans committee. We're going to invite everyone to apply to be a member of that committee. And then we're going to go to a vote. Something along them lines. There would have been a clear and concise way of doing that. And let the fan base as a whole vote on who we want to represent us. That's a simple way of doing it. Because I respect the fact that, of course, they can't host a meeting with every single supporter. Obviously, you can't do that. There has to be certain representation. But that was the way of going about it. Because now what we've got is a situation where you've got 14 groups who are speaking on behalf of the fan base. And it's all well and good the club saying, oh, well, it's going to filter down. Well, what's filtered down so far? Nothing. We're all in the dark. But the lack of leadership from the club is an absolute joke. And it's been a joke for a long time. This is just the latest in a number of examples. Even just little things this season. That Liverpool game earlier this season, Ben Foster giving away tickets to a Liverpool fan in the Watford end. Are you kidding me? You actually being serious? Where's the leadership from the club? Where's someone from the club saying, no, that's bang out of order. We can't tolerate that. It's embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing. And Ben, you mentioned earlier, you're surprised that they made that announcement on the eve of a home match because of the reaction. They wouldn't have expected a reaction because they're so out of touch. They haven't got a clue. They really don't have a clue. And if I'm honest, and Tom, it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on this because obviously you were at the meeting. I'm not entirely convinced that the club are doing this for the right reasons. I think they're doing this because they think it's a good PR move. Possibly that's why they've looked to invite people with effectively social influence, podcasters and so on, because it's a good way of getting the message out. So I'm not entirely convinced that the club are doing it for the right reasons anyway. And you might disagree with that. Obviously, you were involved in the meeting. But personally, what I do think, and this is something that I put out to yourself, Tom, and I put out to everyone else that was invited to that meeting, I do not at all blame you for going. I would have gone. However, now knowing the situation, which is that the club have thrown you under the bus, they've pretty much outed you to everyone, and they're effectively saying that it's got to remain confidential and you can't pass any information, so you're privy to information that the rest of us aren't. Are you happy to continue going to those meetings? Are you happy to be involved in that? Because one thing I would say, yes, I would have gone to the meeting, but I'll tell you one thing, there's not a chance I would still be involved now. Now the club have thrown you under the bus and have turned around and pretty much said that the rest of the fan base aren't deserving of that information?
Well, I think the first point there, you address the sort of intentions. I think broadly it shows a positive intention to engage with fans. As I said, I do think it's a good idea still. The problem being the execution. I mean, there's a broader question about sort of fan engagement in the modern game anyway, particularly with something that I've covered in the fanzine a bit, with fan representation on the boards and the government's fan-led review that's completed not too long ago. So I think that's on the horizon for the entirety of the football league, and I think there's a lot certainly the big clubs. They don't want fans in the board. They don't want fans involved. So anything that they can do to preempt that, to show that fans are perhaps a little more consulted, is something that I think most clubs will do. I'm not saying that Watford want to avoid sort of fan involvement at board level. I just don't know. I'm taking it as a positive move. They've reached out to us or to certain groups of people, and it was a good meeting, and I just hope I just wish I could kind of share it with you, because once the minute's out, people will see that there was good discussions about things that the direction of the club, long-term transfers, the managerial policy, all sorts of things were discussed, and it was a really good meeting. So yeah, I do think it's a positive thing. So what was your second point, Jacob?
Just on the representation of it, effectively, we've got 14 groups that are representing the entire fan base of the football club, and yet none of us have been informed. None of us have been asked on our views until that first meeting's already happened. What should have happened? It sounds to me. I mean, so obviously the meeting's taken part last week. When were you given the phone call for the meeting?
It wasn't too long before it.
So we're talking days before.
Yeah.
So they've phoned you, and within days they've got you into a meeting, and obviously all of this has now since unravelled. What they should have done is, instead of rushing it and create something within a few days, they should have said, look, here's what we want to do. We want to create a fans committee. We're going to start it, whenever, end of this season, start next season, whenever, but give themselves plenty of time and create an opportunity for us all to vote who's speaking on our behalf. I don't think that's unreasonable. We're talking about, and again, it's not your fault. It's no one else's fault, because you've just turned up to a meeting. But whether you like it or not, yourself and the other 13 groups are representing all of us as a fan base. And we've not voted for any of you. We've not. It's the harsh reality of it, isn't it? I want to make sure, I'm not in that meeting. Fair enough. We can't all be in that meeting. But I want to make sure that I'm actually putting something towards it in terms of actually voting for someone to be in that meeting. So, they should be, the people that are participating should be elected to participate. As simple as that.
I don't disagree with a lot of what you're saying there, Jacob. I mean, what I would say, sort of moving forward, is that the club have been broadly inviting fan groups and stuff. I would just say become a part of a fan group, or get involved with whatever it is. I know that shouldn't necessarily have to.
Even then, Tom, I'm still not going to find out what's going on unless I'm in the meeting. I'm not going to find out what's going on, though, am I? Because
this comes back to the initial point where this all would have been easily dealt with had the minutes been released relatively early. We've got the added toxicity of social media in the terrible season that we've had, which adds to people's frustrations. If we'd have been in Europe, or having a good cup run, people probably wouldn't be as angry as they are about this. But I think the initial thing, and what I've said sort of from the get-go, really, well, from the date of the announcement, is that this all would have been quelled had the minutes come out at that point. And as you said,
I agree with you, but obviously they haven't come out. I mean, do you think it's right that they haven't come out yet, the minutes, that the rest of us are in the dark? What's your personal?
No, absolutely not. I mean, the basis of the meeting was that we would get a fairly swift turnarounds of the minutes. We'd all look, the minutes would be agreed and be released. I think it's 7 to 10 days or something following the meeting. And absolutely, I think that should have been the priority, is to get them out. And
if they're not released, in the next few days, are you comfortable with carrying on with it?
Well, I've got faith that that the club will sort this out.
If they don't, if I'm talking hypothetically, they don't release the minutes. They say no, it's confidential. We're not prepared to release it. What's your position? Are you carrying on?
I don't know. I'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it. As I said, I've got faith that the club will do it, and I've there's been follow-ups to the meeting that I've contacted people in the club about, and I'm still awaiting a response for that. So I'm treating it as a constructive thing. I'm trying to be patient, but I do understand people's frustration. And well, I work in my day job is in legal, so I'm aware of the the kind of the to's and fro's of people's opinions, and the such as the releasing of the minutes, how it can be sort of a difficult thing to do and to get the balance right. I'm not going to say here and now I will or won't be involved, because as I said, I've got faith that the club will sort it, and that they'll take into account the things that were raised in the meeting, and there'll be much more constructive meetings moving forwards. That's my position.
Just quickly as well. Watford, when they did announce it, they did obviously put on the bottom of their announcement saying if anyone does want to get involved with this committee, they can email in. So obviously they have elected fan groups, podcasts, fanzines. It's just to get the news out there more, isn't it? Because they've got people that they reach. So I am sticking with Tom and everyone else on this. I know Jacob and Frankie might be looking at it different ways, obviously, but I just feel with a platform, you can push this news out to so many more people. So I can see why Watford have done that initially. It's just the way they've executed all of this has been terribly wrong. But if you are interested in getting involved with the supporters committee, there is an email on the bottom of the address, and it is supporters@watfordfc.com. So yeah, if you do feel really strongly passionate about all of this, because obviously a lot of us do, just drop them an email, and I'm sure they'll get back to you and let you know about this. Just quickly as well, we'll move away from the supporters committee a little bit. I was listening to the Do Not Scratch Your Eyes after the game podcast yesterday. They do spaces on Twitter, really interesting stuff that the boys do there. And Carl was going into a bit more detail about Scott Duxbury has admitted to mistakes that he has done in over the last few seasons. I don't want to bring up the supporters committee anymore, so we're going to move away from that, but we're just going to discuss very briefly about the mistakes that have happened at this football club before we end the podcast. Frankie, I'll come to you. Frankie, you still there? Because you don't have a camera. Yeah. I don't know if you're falling asleep or anything.
No, I was just enjoying that.
No, I thought you were. So yeah, I'll come to you first. What do you think the main mistakes have been since that FA Cup final? Because that's when everything's really gone to shit, hasn't it?
I feel like they were just content with everything. They thought, they didn't have to spend the money to progress the club. On the pitch, that is. I mean, off the pitch, let's be real. The Pozzodes have been, great. They've done so much good things, off the pitch, but on the pitch, it's lack of investment in key areas. It's penny pinching whenever they get the opportunity to. We don't want to sign a 36-year-old centre back who's on, who's going to cost $1 million when you can get an up and coming 23-year-old for literally, you could probably get an up and coming 23-year-old for about $5 million. But it's penny pinching. And when we do see, the rumours coming in about, that lad from Scotland, I can't remember what club it was. We were holding, Aberdeen, we were holding them ransom for like £500,000. Like we're a Premier League club. We have got £500,000 to get that transfer over the line, and that's my main issue: is the constant penny pinching of the owners.
Yeah, Jacob, what do you feel like the main mistakes have been since that season? I think one of them, like Mike has just said now, it's all came down to bonus payouts not being met up that season as well, wasn't it? I think it was rumoured that it was maybe a good few months after the FA Cup final where they were told if they got to the FA Cup final, there would be bonuses that would be paid. that wasn't met. And then obviously the start of the season, Watford started the season very poorly, and that might have been down to bonuses not being paid. And then Javi Gracia actually ended up losing his soft job as well. What do you feel like the biggest mistakes that Scott and Gino have done over the last 3 years?
Where do you start? I mean, I think yes, the bonus payouts isn't great, but I think it's important to remember that we didn't just start that season really poorly. We ended the cup final season really poorly as well. The league form, really dropped off a cliff, and quite what the reasons behind that was, I don't know. If that was just a case of players had the cup final in mind, I don't know. That's why Gracia was sacked, because it wasn't a case of we didn't win for our first 4 league games. It was carrying the form that we ended the previous season with into this one, and they pushed the button. We know it doesn't take them too long to push the button if they need to. I think recruitment's been a massive problem. Frankie, you've obviously just touched upon it there. The penny pinching. We spoke about it earlier. Going into this season, we've let Will Hughes go for £5 million because he only had 12 months left on his contract. We signed Kucha for £2 million, a 34-year-old at the time who's never played in this division before. Quite what we were anticipating might happen from there, I don't know. Recruitment's been a big problem. Obviously, the constant manager turnover, it's never been something that I've been keen on. If I was running the club, it wouldn't be a way that I would do it. I prefer, more of a long-term appointment, but it's something that I personally, and I would imagine a lot of fans have tolerated when we've been doing well. I was quite happy to, wasn't my preferred option. I was quite happy to put up with the managerial turnovers whilst we were being successful. Obviously, it's now a situation where it feels like the momentum of the club is moving in a downward direction. That's something I'm looking at now and would be keen to change. So I think that's been a problem. So there's been a number of different mistakes, I think, that they've made really in that time. But unfortunately, what it's resulted in now, and I think the managerial turnover is probably a key part of this. The club just completely lacks identity. If I think back to when I first started going properly in the early 2000s, we were a pretty poor championship side at the time. The quality wasn't great, but our identity was that the players were going to fight and do everything possible, and we were a battling side. And identities can change and evolve. That wasn't necessarily the same identity we then had at the start of the Pozzo era. By that point, it developed into a side that played quite attractive attacking football at that stage. But I look at us now and I can't really work out, what the plan is. What's the identity of the club? I certainly wouldn't put us in the bracket of a battling team like a Burnley, for example. We certainly don't have the quality. And I think identity comes from management. I touched upon it earlier. I think it comes initially from the very top, and the leadership from the very top of the club is very poor. Despite that, I'm personally, I just want to put it out there, I'm not actually in the Pozzo out camp. And I know that might sound a bit contradictory considering what I just said, but I think it's important to realise, what the alternative might be. When you look at the likes of Bassini and some of the others that we've had in the past, I think it's clear that the Pozzos are the best option. So I don't want the Pozzos to go, but I think it's fair for us to challenge them on certain things and realise that certain things need to change. And one of those things I think is really important is clearer and strong leadership from their side that will hopefully filter down through the club.
Definitely. And Tom, how have you felt the last few years have gone with all the mistakes and that? What's been like the worst mistake really for Watford?
Oh, blimey, where to start there? I'm not sure. I mean, there's been this sort of death by 1,000 cuts rather than one thing that I could particularly identify. I think, culturally, I've said this. I think I said this in the last issue of the fanzine. I think the culture needs to change, particularly with the managerial and backroom staff issue, because it worked in the early days, but you need to develop as the game goes. And we started off one manager of the season, and they largely fulfilled their their targets, but we've just got to a stage now where it's so short term. We've got a mishmash of players, as I said, brought in from various places. There's no playing style. They've all had got completely different ideas, starting off with Xisco to Ranieri to Hodgson now. And you compare Xisco to Hodgson, we've not got a vastly different squad to what we had at the start of the season. And we're trying to fit square pegs in round holes, I think. So I think that's something that changes, but it's not an easy thing to do. you need to trust the manager, and that means going through bad patches, multiple bad patches, and potentially risking missing out on promotion or the playoffs or whatever. But yeah, you need backroom staff that is supported by the manager. You need a recruitment policy for players that will fit the scheme that the manager's trying to play. But at the same time, as I said, that requires a lot of trust on the manager's part. And I don't think that's something that the Pozzo regime particularly holds strong, given the success they've had with the scouting network and bringing their players in that are of good quality, but not necessarily appropriate for the way that we're playing. And I don't think they value the manager or the head coach as much as other clubs. But I think that's something that should change. It's going to be difficult to do that now, because you're going to look at a young up and coming manager with a strong philosophy, although I hate that word, a strong playing style and identity, and they're going to look at Watford and go, well, one of two ways. It's either going to be, well, I'm going to get a payoff in a few months' time, pay off my 2-year contract, a nice little earner, or they're going to go, well, I want to build something. I'm not going to be given the time to do it, so it's going to be hard to do that.
Yeah.
But that's the fun of being a fan, isn't it? You've got to be positive, and for each season we have like this, 2, 3, 4 seasons like this, we get a Leicester moment, we get a Wolves game, we get a run to the FA Cup final. So I just say to everyone that's thinking of not coming to the Brentford game or not renewing their season ticket, I just say this is what being a fan is. You go with the ups and the downs, and things will get better, things will get worse. It's just what being a fan's about, isn't it?
Part and parcel of being a football fan, isn't it? Of being, especially a small club like Watford as well. I imagine Liverpool don't really go through times like this, but definitely being a Watford fan, you do have lots of maybe more downs than ups. But we've not done too bad recently, have we? We've got to think we did have 5 consecutive seasons in the Premier League. We did bounce back to a Premier League first time of asking as well from a Championship after a COVID season as well. So there has been positives. We are suffering a bit of a negative now, unfortunately, and it just feels super low at the moment, just due to communication from the top of the club, really. But I'm just going to talk about managers quickly as well, because I've discussed it before. I don't think I've discussed it with you, Tom, before when you came on about managers. But Varane just says ultimately you just want players who will run through brick walls and win. And that's all we ask for as football fans. We just want everyone giving 100% for a team and to run through those brick walls to make sure we take 3 points at the end of the day. Or even if you don't take 3 points, at least we can see you trying. And we've not seen that lately. Like at the end of the games, players just shrug off down the tunnel and don't even appreciate the fans half the time. I think only 2 or 3 actually stayed out and clapped the rest of the fans who actually stayed the whole entire 90 minutes. And that needs to change. Like you'd always guarantee seeing back in the day, you'd see Troy, Mariappa, Gomez. They would always stay out there, but they would make sure other people would stay out there clapping the fans as well. And we haven't got that now. I don't think Sissoko is the right leader for his football club either. I don't think he's the right captain at the moment. But that's my personal view. But we'll talk about managers very quickly because I know it's a long podcast. I've actually looked on Twitter and seen that someone has tweeted about possible manager maybe being interviewed at the end of the season. I don't know if it's completely concrete or anything. It might just be a rumour, but at least we can discuss about potential managers because we know Roy Hodgson will be leaving at the end of the season. This gentleman's actually said that Nuno Santos, formerly of Wolves and Spurs, could potentially be interviewed at the end of the season. He's also gone on to say that Slaven Bilic could also be considered as well. For Watford. I'll come to you first, Frankie. End of the season, Hodgson's gone. Who do you reckon? Well, not who do you reckon. Who would you want to take charge of Watford next season in the Championship?
Well, firstly, that Nuno comment. I'm pretty sure that's that guy with the Simpsons profile picture. So I'll take that with a pinch of salt. But in my opinion, I feel like we should have gone for Ryan Lowe when we had the chance to. I loved him at Plymouth. Decent at Bury, when they had financial difficulty, and that's something we'll probably face next season as well. But I'm tempted by Warburton. I know I see Luan's tweet about it, and the fact he comes with Eustace as well.
Yes.
I feel like he's the one that I want for next season.
Yeah, no, I said about Ryan Lowe a couple of podcasts ago. I was really impressed with how he nurtures young talent and doesn't have much of a budget, but wherever he goes, he just managed to get them to play good football in football, like really aggressive press as well. And he's done well at Preston as well. And they were struggling until they sacked their manager. And Ryan Lowe came in and has actually got them playing decent football. And it doesn't seem like it takes him long to get his philosophy across to players either. So that's an attractive proposition, and it's a young English manager as well. That would tick my box as well. And Warburton, that's interesting as well, because obviously the John Eustace connection. Obviously, Warburton was actually academy manager back in the day, or reserve manager. So he's got that connection with Watford Football Club. And obviously, QPR started really well this season. They've just been hit with lots of injuries lately. I think Chris Willock's out for the rest of the season. That's a massive blow for him. But he could possibly go after at the end of the season. Jacob, any one of those two you fancy, or would you go down a different path?
Do you know what? I've got a sneaky suspicion that Tom might have a fair idea about who we're getting, but
we'll all get a turn, I think, next season, won't we?
For me, I think the challenge is what decent manager is going to want to come, and I think people are a bit naive. I spoke to someone about it yesterday, and they said, "Oh, but we'll be an attractive club to manage at championship level with potentially, top end championship side." I think people are a bit delusional with that. Yes, in theory that's right, but I think we've now got such a reputation for flying through managers. I'm not entirely convinced that a decent level manager will be prepared to come. If they were, and again, this is a long shot, I don't think we would get him, because while he leave his current role, he's doing quite well. But I'd love to get someone like Chris Wilder in. I think Wilder's a decent manager. I think he did a great job at Sheffield United. I think he will eventually take Borough up. They're faltering a little bit outside the playoffs at the moment. But, they could still get in the playoffs and go up this year. But someone like him, but realistically, would he leave Borough to come to us? Probably not, if I'm honest, because he knows he'll rock up and, he'll be doing well to see out the season in the job. So I think that's the challenge that we've now got, isn't it? That reputation is, the chickens have come home to roost a little bit, haven't they? That reputation is so set in stone now. But I think a lot of managers will look at it and think, I probably don't fancy that unless they're after. I think someone mentioned it earlier. I don't remember who said it, but unless it's someone that's thinking, oh, that'd be quite good because I could get quite a quick payday. And that's obviously not the sort of person that we want in.
Yeah, no, definitely. Have you seen that we've all gone for like an English manager at the moment as well? Tom, are you going to stick with that, or are you going to go for the continental approach?
I've not got a particular name in mind. I mean, I think Xisco could have been a good appointment. I think someone in this issue of the fanzine said that they needed a strong number two, like Boothroyd had with Keith Birkinshaw back in the day. It was extremely inexperienced, Xisco, and he got a song out of those players, which is a rare thing. And I think he just needed a bit of experience. Someone who'd been there and seen it to sort of to back him up, really. I've seen Mike Duffy with Rooney. That would be great, wouldn't it? But I can't see that in a month of Sundays. But no, I think regardless of their nationality, I think just someone with a strong, effective way of playing that can unite a squad. Personally, I like sort of intense, high intense press, and using wide players, because that seems to be the flavour of the month at the moment, particularly in the Premier League. But whether that's manager A or manager B, I don't know. I'm sure that they'll surprise us. I'm sure. But yeah, the other thing as well, I think that particularly with the lack of connection some fans have that we've all got with the club at the moment, I think an ex-Watford's coach or player on the backroom staff, whether that's a goalkeeping coach or someone that picks up the cones at the end of the day, I think that would be very welcome, to restore a bit of a connection, I think, with the good times.
Yeah, and mine and Jacob's mates popped up with an absolutely ridiculous.
What was he talking about?
Bad as it's going to sound, if Nathan Jones come up, would you take him? In a word,
You
no.
must be joking.
And then Mike Duffy comes
No
up saying,
chance.
I'd rather shit in my hands and clap and then have that prep Nathan Jones as my club manager, and fuck that. But yeah, I think we can all agree no to Nathan Jones. And just before we wrap it up, obviously the new issue of the Golden Pages came out yesterday. Tom was outside next to the Graham Taylor statue selling it. I think I saw that you had quite a good day, and I think you met Chris Stark as well. He took a photo of you.
Yeah, top man. Yeah, I had a bit of a chat with him before, and yeah, he took a photo of me for his Insta page and stuff. But yeah, no, it was great yesterday. Saw a lot of contributors and a lot of people that enjoy the fanzine and stuff. And yeah, I'll be there, you know, come what may, until the end of the season, selling the remaining issues. So yeah, that's the front cover. Where are we? There we go. So yeah, it's better than, in my opinion, better than the program. It's cheaper than the program, and yeah, you've got stuff from other fans in there. So yeah, if you got £3 to spare, get one of those, or even if you fancy contributing, get in touch with me, and yeah, get you in there next season.
And what Tom did on his last issue as well, guys, I don't know if you knew or everyone who's listening, but Tom actually donated all his money that he actually raised on that to the NHS charities, didn't you, Tom? So you didn't actually make no money for that. Golden Pages made no money for that, and all the money was sent over to the NHS, which was absolutely brilliant. How did it all go last month in the end? Was it a good month?
Yeah, it was very good. Yeah, I mean, I don't take a penny out of it for myself. I invest it in bits and bobs, stickers, postcards, cover art, whatever it is for the fanzine. But yeah, last month it was for Raise, the West Hertfordshire Hospital charity, which I thought was quite important to recognise their contribution during the pandemic. Well, I'm just about to sort of send the money in the next coming days, but I'll put on social media the sort of details of that. But yeah, that was good, and thank you to everyone that bought it. Hopefully I'll do one of those next season as well.
Brilliant. Yeah, make sure, guys, that if you attend the game next week against Brentford, wasn't it? Make sure you go over to Tom and pick up a copy of the Golden Pages, because it's really good content in there. I think me and Mike, we went in there a good old year or two ago, didn't we? When we first set up the podcast, so we'll have to write something in there again and get our names back in there. But yeah, thank you, gentlemen, for all of you for joining us tonight. I know it's the day before Jacob and Frankie tonight, so thank you, boys, for joining us. Hope it wasn't too bad.
Cheers, mate. No, decent.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, no worries. Nice one. And Tom, thank you very much for joining us as well. I was kind of, I had no James tonight, I had no Mike Duffy either, so I was like, who do I go to? Who do I turn towards? And I knew Tom, he's been on 4 times and get on with Tom quite well. Jacob's a mate from my successive football team, and we've watched Watford up and down the country for years, haven't we? And then Frankie, if you've not seen Frankie, follow him on Twitter. He's absolutely quality on there, and that's where I've met Frankie from, and he's really good, and he loves Watford so much. So it's important to get the people who support Watford and their voices heard on the Voices of the Vic. This is what we want this podcast to be. We're looking for, going forward towards the end of the season, we want more people to get involved, get your say on the Voices of the Vic, because this is your podcast as much as mine and Mike's. So it's a good way for you to get your opinions out there, just like Jacob and Frankie have done tonight with Tom. But yeah, thank you very much for joining, everyone. And we'll be back next Sunday, to talk about the Brentford result. Hopefully it's not another defeat, but who knows? So yeah, thank you for joining. If you're watching on YouTube, just quickly, don't forget to like the page and subscribe. Yeah, that's it. See you later, boys. Bye.